Many of us have heard the significance of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What I'd like to do this morning is share with you a bit of my own interpretation of what the gold and frankincense and myrrh can mean for you and for me, and how we can incorporate this into our Christian lives so that we can live a better and more full experience of our Christian faith. Okay? So, gold. We know that the Magi brought gold to Jesus because that's a kingly gift. It symbolizes that Jesus is king because it's a kingly gift. So what about for you and for me? Gold. Well, it's money, right, in one hand. And I think that we as Americans are particularly charitable people. Well, I know that whenever there's an earthquake or a tornado or hurricane, our country is perhaps the most charitable in the world for helping people. That's a good thing. We tend to be very charitable people with our money. That's good. So continue to do that we would use our treasure for that. But I have another thought about gold. They brought this from their treasuries. Right? So what is for us today one of our greatest treasures? What is gold for you and for me? And I think it's time. Time, for the most part. Our precious hours of our day, that's gold for most of us. So what's the Epiphany challenge for you and me? To give gold to Jesus. To give more of our precious time to God. They opened their treasure chest. That's the most precious box they have. And they gave from that. And I think for most of us, time is the most precious thing that we have. And most of us have very little of it. Right? That's why it becomes such a great sacrifice. That we would give of our time to God in a sacrificial way. So think about that for yourself. What kind of time are you going to give to God this year? You think, gosh, but that's hard. I don't have any more time. That's the idea of sacrifice. We take from what we have, and I give it to you, God, in sacrifice. This is the gold offering I'm giving to you. That's precious. It's precious when you give of your time, isn't it? And some of you, I know, have very little, especially when you're taking care of your kids and your family. I don't have any more time to give. That's why it's gold. And Jesus receives that as a precious gift. To pray every day more than you are now, if you can. I want to give a simple example of how I am incorporating this into my life, of gaining back some time in my life to be able to give it more to Jesus. And it has to do with my cell phone. I didn't have a smartphone until I came to St. Augustine's. I didn't have Facebook till I came to St. Augustine's. I never texted until I came to St. Augustine's, but I got those things to be able to reach out to students more, and it's very helpful to do that. And I told myself, I'm not going to be like these young kids who get sucked into their cell phones and all that stuff. Well, who am I lying to? I've been sucked right in. Our culture is a culture that squeezes every ounce of time out of us, doesn't it? And not only that, but it's a culture that squeezes God out of our time, which makes the gold offering even harder. That's what a secular culture does, is it's God is your own private time, and then we have the secular time. I know that's a criticism, but it's what it is. So with me with my cell phone, I found myself losing control of my life. Here's what I mean by that. Before smartphone, BSP, before smartphone, there was lots of moments in the day where I was free to be with my own thoughts and use my brain in a very creative way. For example, standing in the line at Winco when there's 9,000 people in front of me. In the BSP day, I would stand there with my own thoughts and I would think. And I would watch people. And sometimes I would even pray. sometimes using God's name in vain. Just kidding. No, those long lines, you know. But once the cell phone began to stick into my life more and it's claws into me, every time there was a moment where I stopped moving literally, I no longer turned to my thoughts, I turned to my phone. Every moment of free time now became glued to my phone, checking my email, looking at Facebook for something, reading something, right? It's just like every time I stop at a stop sign, a stoplight, phone. Getting my oil changed, phone. I'm never with my own thoughts anymore. And then it's tempting to bring my phone in the chapel because I'm so important that I have to make sure I'm always available. And every time a little beep happens, I pull my attention from Jesus and I'm phone. Even some of us priests, we noticed this. We were getting together for lunch one day and we're having lunch, and at one point I noticed that all three of us were on our phones at lunch. I thought, this is ridiculous. And so I went to the cell phone shop, AT&T, a few weeks ago, and I said, I want my life back. That's literally what I told her. I'm grandfathered in for the limitless data plan. And I said, I want to give up limitless, unlimited data. Can you give me the smallest, puniest data plan you have? She says, you're the first person that's ever asked to do that. People defend their unlimited data with their life. I said, take it from me. Now, I still have a smartphone, but I can't use it outside of my office anymore because I'll have to pay for it out of the wazoo. I want my life back. What I want is that free moments of time, because time is gold. And I want to be able to use those little moments to actually let my thoughts be in my head, to let my heart be present to somebody. And maybe when I'm sitting in the oil change waiting room, perhaps to talk to somebody, but that can't happen yet because everybody's on their phone still. Give time. Give a gold offering this year. And gold is time. Go to Mass, the holy days of obligation, retreats. Give time. It's gold. And it's what the Magi offered, and it's what we are asked to offer. Frankincense. The Magi offered frankincense because that is symbolic of Jesus being divine. Incense was the offering for the gods. The Jews offered incense for God. The pagans offered incense. It was a religious offering. So frankincense has to do with religious offering and religious practice. So what about for you and for me? Religious practices. For us to be more religious with our life. I want to give some examples of religious practices. We have, as Catholics, we have an immense amount of religious practice that we really need to bring out of our treasure chest and dust off and use again. One example. I want to encourage all of you to do the traditional Epiphany blessing of your house. You don't need a priest to do it, although I'd be happy to come and do that for you. Go online and just Google Epiphany house blessing. And lots will come up. One is meant for a priest to do it, but there's also one where you can do it yourself. And all you need is some chalk and a chair to stand on. Because you're going to go to the main door of your house on the inside, and you take chalk and you write the first two numbers of the year, 20 for 2014, 20, and you make a cross, and then you're going to put in the initials of the three wise men. You're going to put G, you're going to put a cross, you're going to put an M, and I'm not giving the names because I want you to go figure this out for yourself. And then you could put a B, and you're going to put a cross, and then 14. And there's a prayer that goes with it. So on the door of your house, you've initiated the year, bringing in the year 2014 with this idea of the Magi bringing blessing to your home. You can have your kids, different kids, make the different chalk signs. It's a wonderful little practice, but it's a way to bring God into our lives. It's a religious practice that calls to mind incense, that's about God, that our lives are about Jesus. And when we give to God, see, incense is a gift to God and it burns up and it's gone. So it's basically a waste, isn't it? Right? We're going to waste this on God, but it's never a waste because when we give to God, the promise is that God takes and gives back to us. Thus, give and you shall receive. The Lord's Prayer, forgive and you are forgiven. That we make our religious offering to God and it creates this beautiful exchange between God and it comes back and it blesses the world. Another religious practice to pull out of our treasure chest. That's a religious practice that's not easy, but it's not eating meat on Fridays all year long. That is still Catholic practice. It wasn't changed in the books. Many people said it was changed, even us priests, but in the books it's still there. I encourage you to do that. It's one of those things where every Friday, and Friday comes around every week. It's like, oh, shoot, we were going to go out tonight. I can't eat meat. But I make a sacrifice. I burn frankincense for God. Friday's the day where Jesus offered his flesh for the salvation of the world. Can I on Friday abstain from flesh in honor and sacred remembrance of the sacred flesh of Jesus that was given for me in love? And so I abstain in holy remembrance on that day and call to mind God's great love for me. And so every Friday becomes a little frankincense offering to God of just abstaining from some meat. See, that's the beauty of the religious practice, is it works its way into our life and it becomes an offering of frankincense. I make this sacrifice to God. God, I'm putting you in the forefront of my life, and then God in turn exchanges and blesses us. Pretty cool, huh? Open up the treasury chest of Catholicism. There's lots of little practices like that. And some of them are kind of hard, right? Some of them are kind of hard. But I think for most of us, being too hard has not been our problem. Being overly religious has not been our problem for most of us, has it? Now, for some people, they can go overboard, but that's not our problem, right? You know, you're being way too religious. I don't think that's the critique of our generation. In times in our history, yeah, I think they could go a little overboard. But I think we've made it almost too easy. We've made our religion too easy. And here's what I mean by too easy. There's nothing wrong with being simple. But I think about the classroom. Think about who your favorite teachers and professors were in high school and college. Who was your favorite teacher, professor? The one that made it easy for you? The one that said, nah, don't worry about it. The one that didn't care too much about discipline, or whether you really learned it or didn't, just as long as you kind of got it? Was that your favorite teacher? Your favorite coach? I bet not. I know mine, my favorite instructors were the ones that were hard. They wanted me to learn, so I had to be disciplined. They cared. It was difficult. The homework was hard. They gave me bad grades sometimes when I deserved them. And I think that's how Jesus was. Jesus was a demanding teacher, but he did it with such love because he cared. He wanted them to know the material he was teaching. So he didn't say, so when they said, Jesus, what does that parable mean? It doesn't matter. Just whatever you come up with is fine. No. He was a demanding teacher. He didn't make it easier for them. He did simplify some things, but he made it real. And he made it a strong part of their life. Frankincense, to be more religious in our lives. Not crazy, but I think for most of us, that's not going to be our problem. If some of you get to the fanatical point, let me know and I'll work with you. But I think it's the opposite for most of us, is being too simple. Frankincense. Myrrh. Myrrh was the fragrant oil that they brought to Jesus. It's a perfumed oil that's used to anoint dead bodies. Okay? It's used for burial. Nice baby shower gift, thank you, right? But it's symbolic because Jesus came to die for us. So we know the story of the resurrection in John's Gospel. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary ran to the tomb in the morning carrying all of the herbs and spices to anoint the body of Jesus. That's myrrh. Right? They're going to anoint his body for burial, but he rose from the dead, right? Did you know that Mary did not get to anoint the body of Jesus for burial? Because he was already anointed beforehand. That's a different story, right? So, myrrh has to do with death. What about for you and for me, myrrh? Jesus says, love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than to lay down his life, her life, for another, for a friend. Love then is dying to self. What love really is in the end is death to ourself. Because love is about the other. Love is death to my pride. Love is death to my ego. Love is death to my selfishness. Love is death to my possessive need for attention. Love is death to all of those things that are not about the other. This is the hardest one. Yeah, because it's about death. We have to die to ourselves to be like Jesus. Love, true love, is very hard. And any of you who have ever been married or have children know what I'm speaking about. At a certain point, when you boil it down, it's just about swallowing hard and just loving. There's many times in our lives where love is beautiful and it's filled with roses and wonderful feelings and sweet songs. And that's great. Thanks be to God for that. But there are times when love is myrrh. It's the anointing for death. To love like Jesus loved. To be willing to lay it down for the other in love. So when you find that moment in your life, and it will come, maybe you're in it right now, think about, okay, myrrh. God, all I have to offer you right now is myrrh. I'm going to just cover myself with myrrh because I have to die to myself right now. Jesus, help me. I wish you a blessed year and a wonderful Epiphany. Gold, give lots of it. Frankincense, burn it often. Myrrh, use it as needed. Blessed Epiphany to you all.